Hello and welcome to another episode of Ordinary People. We have Andrew back at the controls.
Hi.
To Andrew, hi. Neil is going to introduce our guest. Very excited to have him. So Neil,
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Paul and Andrew. Good to see you boys again. And yeah, it's my privilege to introduce well, I'll just welcome, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. But it's my great privilege to welcome Arthur Cassidy, Dr. Arthur Cassidy, to our show tonight. And so, Arthur, I'm just going to hand over to you. Can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a wee bit about who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you do.
Good evening, Neil and Paul, and to Grace Community Church. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity just to say a little bit of my work in the vineyard. And very simple guy, saved by grace. And possibly shouldn't have been, but this is what Calvary is all about. But where did I come from? Well, as we've been friends, I think quite a long time now, on and off. I know our paths go different directions. But born in Portadown, in the Alexander Gardens, and my mum and dad and my two sisters, Claire and Barbara. And I grew up, my parents brought me to church. We were brought up as Anglicans. The word meant nothing to me at all, but I love music. I love singing in the choir, and so I went in at the age of 5 with Gordon Spears. We were there and just to sing. And it's the only place you could actually get trained music, and we loved music. I couldn't read a note, and I couldn't hardly sing, but in the Church of Ireland, I took great pride in being members of this the Royal School of Church Music was the name of it. And this is a great thing to teach young guys how to sing who came from ordinary working class places like myself. And that was in order to get, by the way, Gloria Honeyford sang in that choir too, just in case you didn't know.
Oh, there you
She
go.
sang in that choir too, not at the time I was there, but she had been in it too, apparently. I didn't know her terribly well till later on. But anyway, you're taught to sing, and I sang my heart out, and my sisters, they went to piano and all that, but I was amazed at singing. And I'll tell you about the best part of it later on, but I was singing all of these amazing hymns, powerful hymns, powerful organ pipes, and the sound just sent me. I just felt so happy singing. But my parents didn't send me to church. There were Christian people who, like myself, are greatest of sinners, and we were there. And it was great to not only to be sent to church, because we were brought to church.
Mhm.
And I owe so much to my parents at that time, because they brought us there faithfully Sunday by Sunday, Sunday school, Bible class. But on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every night I was in that church,
Wow.
not in the church building, but Monday night, a man came along to me and he said to me, and I don't know if I said anyone else in the choir, Jimmy Jennings, who I'm sure your dad knows too, Ron. And Jimmy Jennings, who sadly died and went to be with the Lord a few years ago, Jimmy lived in Hanover Street, and Jimmy and his father, lovely people who shaped my life so much. And he said, "You better come to the Christian Endeavour."
Mhm.
And I'd heard about the CE, but I didn't know an awful lot about it, truthfully. And I knew that there was a CE in Ireland, and not a wee bit was getting to me, because I wasn't sure where the border where it stood, because I knew here was the Christian Endeavour side of Ireland. And I thought, yeah, the Roman Catholics are they involved in this as well. So I didn't know where I stood. But anyway, here I was. And I felt sure we're all people and God created us. So it doesn't matter what the labels are, we're
Mhm.
human. And so anyway, there I went, but I didn't go when I was 5-year-old to see it was about 8-year-old when I got down, 8 to 9. But I was just loved singing to the Lord. And that was it. I didn't know much about God. I hardly knew anything about God, but I was amazed at the stained glass windows on the Ascension. And they caught my eye, and I thought, well, you know something, there's something about that. But the sound of that organ, massive organ going in St. Mark's, it would have sent you, helter skelter. And to hear that, and it was right behind my ear. I'm surprised I can still hear. It was right behind me, because I was singing in the tenor and bass section, you see. But after that, so naive, so innocent, and all I knew was there was something about this that I seemed to love. It was the music. I didn't know anything about God, and I felt that when you went to sing, Well, the good thing about it was they taught me to sing, so maybe it helped me in my career later on. But anyway, I think the most important thing was that there was people in that church, born again evangelical Christians. And at that time, it wasn't an evangelical parish. That at that time, that had been the social gospel. But God was working in me, and I didn't know, but He was working. And but we learned to Christian ever, and there I met many born again evangelical firebrands, and too numerous to mention, persecuted, also many people, and they were grounded in prayer, grounded in the scriptures, as was the then rector Kennington McGonigal, who went to consecration meeting every once a month in Christian Endeavour, just the same as Eden Derry Christian Endeavour. So I felt there was something about this place. And then on Tuesday night, there was a gospel meeting. And the gospel meeting was in Mary Street, which was then beside the church, a church hall. And there you were singing all the Sankey hymns. You heard about Charles Haddon Spurgeon. You heard about Bishop Jesse Ryle. And I was living this, thriving on this stuff, because on a Saturday morning in Portadown, by the way, there was a little market in Millennium Court.
Yeah.
And a lovely Christian man, Mr. Hull, Davy Hull. Davy had an amazing bookstall. And I couldn't wait to get this market on a Saturday morning after going to the cinema down at the Regal, because the head of the man who owned the Regal cinema lived next door to us in Alexander Gardens. And so I used to get free passes sometimes. But anyway, I went down after that on a Saturday after coming home to cinema. I went down to thrive through the books to see, and I found a Gideon New Testament. And I remember buying that New Testament. And then there were little gospel tracts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I got those. Don't know where they'd been. Somebody else had them, but I got these. But I picked up this amazing book on Spurgeon and one on Ryle. And I couldn't afford it, but he gave me one free. And it was like, there's none of this to buy this, get one free. I got one, and I get to get the other one free. But he said to me, devour that book, because I'm sure you've already devoured the one that you should be devouring before you read the scriptures. And I said, I'm just learning, Davy, just learning. So away I went, and Jimmy Jennings said to me, you know something? If the Anglican Church was like these two men now, it would shake the world to its feet, and people would be saved. So that was the beginning. So I moved on from then, the Tuesday night gospel meeting, and then Wednesday night we had a prayer meeting. And there were many going to that prayer meeting. We had 20s and 30s at that prayer meeting, never to be seen since I became a teenager, but 20s and 30s at prayer meeting. And it was quite the same in many other churches. I mean, they were thrived in prayer. And then after that, then the BB, Boys Brigade, more Bible training, Boys Brigade, Friday night choir practice, Saturday night youth club, and then back to church. You never got away from it. I was like a monk. I was living in the church, but I didn't know. I knew about God, but I didn't know Him. And so the point was, I grew up with liturgy. I grew up with all of that, and exploring and questioning about it. And I don't think they didn't like you to ask too many questions, but I was interested in, there's a thing in the Church of Ireland called the 39 Articles of the Christian Faith, which Bishop Jesse Ryle and Charles Spurgeon preaches about quite often. And I wondered what these were about. And one day I was sitting reading these when the rector was preaching. I was sitting reading this. And one of these rules, principles are, the Bible says you must be born again. And I wondered, I've already been born, so what does this mean? And then another one, by grace ye are saved. And I thought this is an amazing thing to hear. And so there I was in my naivety and my stupidity. I just didn't know what that all meant. And so then I turned to Jimmy Jennings and the people in the Christian Endeavour, and they said, this is the Bible, this is biblical truth, firm and square in the scriptures. If you're a sinner, going to church does not get you into heaven, does not get you into eternal life. Singing your praises will not get you into heaven. You need that personalship of Jesus Christ. And so then I met Kenny Martin, from Eden Derry Church. Kenny was with CEF, Child Evangelism, and they were running summer schools, and down at the seaside and down in Newcastle, we would met down there, and we come on to Faith Mission, were there. And so this was all filling my head with all this amazing stuff, And there I was, and I just loved it. And I loved poking in that wee Bible shop. I think it's still there, along the promenade. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And there you could go in, and I nearly pulled the shelves down because I was looking for Ryle and Spurgeon. And he put me out one day for pulling the books out, and I thought, look, I mean, there was something about this, and I didn't know much about the Holy Spirit. I had no idea, and I thought, well, look here, I'm going to have to find out more about this. But I didn't want to be rude and ask too many questions. But I knew there was something going on in my head and soul, but I didn't know what it was. And listening to other guys who were just going to church and doing the usual thing, that was a lovely thing to do. But I knew there was something going on here because you had nothing else to do in Portadown. It was exciting as Las Vegas closed down. Portadown was really, it was a wonderful place to be in when I was growing up, but everything centered around the church, and no matter what church you went to, and then the gospel missions came along. So it was then about 8, 9 years of age, I felt that I didn't know enough about God, even going to the Bible studies, going to Sunday school, saying, oh, wide is the ocean, wide the heavens above. Daniel was, I think about Daniel in the lion's den, daily he prayed 3 times, all of those. And there were just course after course, filling my heart with joy. And there's rolled out, I just love singing those, the old rugged cross, all of that grounded me. And my parents as well. And I just thank God for them, that they encouraged me. And then when I became a teenager, I came up, I failed everything at school, by the way. I was an absolute ludo. I was absolutely, I was exciting as a smartphone that doesn't work. I couldn't work anything out. The 11 plus, and my cousins were a bit more brainier than I was. I had nothing, an empty head. They actually were, they went on to do wonderful things, but I went to Clowna, this amazing school where the clowns went, and I went there and I failed nearly everything there as well. I wanted to be a vet, but I had no idea what. I loved animals. I wanted to be a vet, but God was working on me, but I'll tell you about that in a moment. It's there. I failed 11 plus, and then in Portadown, because you lived in Portadown, you had a second chance, so you could do the review, which was just in case you fell asleep in the first exam to get into grammar school, you could do it again. But I couldn't even work out the examples in the 11 plus and the review, and I spent all my time. And I remember this woman walking up and the invigilator saying, "Have you not started yet?" I couldn't work out the examples, never mind the ones on the test. So there it was, going nowhere fast. And so I ended up in the woodwork class in Clowna School. And my joints didn't fit. I had to fill them with wood shavings to make them look respectable. And I knew I couldn't be a joiner either. And I was a lost cause. I felt I'm going nowhere here. And but God was working. He cares. God really cares. He cares. I tell you, you can't get out of his hand. Yeah. He gives the biblical promises. I'll hold you up and I'll raise you up. And I knew he did. And in all my sin and in all my failings, he raised me up. And so after that abysmal experience, the only thing I was good at in Clown was school plays and pantomimes and singing. And I did that because there's nothing else to do. So when I grew up and all of that, I had this first introduction to theatre, you see. And then Gloria Honeyford, she was actually singing quite a lot, but she had been singing very secular. Gloria was singing all these various Irish songs, etc., etc., etc. And that she had been in some Irish choir as well. So that's where we all got our training. Mm-hmm. So anyway, after that, I met my wife there, and in Quick Endeavour, my father-in-law, he was there as well. And he told me off all the time for not spending enough time on my knees. So it was an amazing experience, I think, just to emulate him and to see what is this about. He was his Bible open, praying hours every morning on his knees for missionaries all around the world from different places. Mm-hmm. I was amazed at this. I didn't know any of them hardly. I knew about 2. He had about 32, and I thought this was amazing. And so God was, the power of the Holy Spirit was shaping my life there. And I felt, that what's going to happen now? So educationally, I was a dead flop. I was going nowhere. But God took control. Mm-hmm. There was a cry out for men for the ministry in the Church of Ireland about 1960s and something like 65 or so. And I felt I would go. I felt that God was calling me into ordination. Well, they wanted the men, and here I was. And I was just learning more from the scriptures. I couldn't get my head around the Old Testament. You know that New Testament was not a problem. You see, the Old Testament, you may as well have given me, a jigsaw to work out. I got them all mixed up. I failed the scripture exams because I got the prophets mixed up. The Red Sea, I got it, I called it by the wrong name. I was just getting totally confused with the Old Testament. I was okay with Noah's Ark, and because I'm involved with Noah's Ark at the minute in South Africa. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But I moved on. God started to work in my life. And then it was then that I offered myself for ordination, but I hadn't got any qualifications, you see, so that was a big block. You couldn't go to Trinity College in Dublin with nothing. Like, I mean, you had to have some sort of a brain to be ordained. And I said, sure. Jimmy Jennings said to me, sure, you only have to fill out people's pension forms and things. So I said, really? So I was going to say, what, So I went down and I went to Dublin and I said, look, you can't become into the Church of Ireland because you have to go to university. I said, for goodness sake, I couldn't even get into comprehensive school. So anyway, so after that, I took it more seriously and I went to get the O levels GCSE. Well, they were much more difficult than GCSEs. Bit of a higher standard, so I'm told. But I had to grind at these things to get them together. And I scraped through them anyway in Belfast, and then after that, I wanted to just do an ordinary course. I didn't want to go to university. I just wanted to do something, get ordained, and go to a country parish somewhere and work with people and study the scriptures and look after people and care for people and preach Christ crucified. And that's what I wanted to do. But God had other plans. I got it all wrong. I was listening to my voice. I wasn't listening to God's voice.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest problem that many people have, even as Christians, where they think God is moving them and you're listening to your own voice, really. And I've met them in my clinic. And I made that great mistake because I did what I wanted to do, what I thought God was calling me. I could feel it Sunday by Sunday. I was on fire for the Lord. But I knew, and I was a shy Christian. I couldn't go out and preach or teach, and I admire these people who could, but it wasn't for me. I wasn't a teacher. I wasn't a preacher. And the only thing I was good at was maybe praying, but I mean, I didn't. But I felt that I maybe do something about this. So it was coming up to the Troubles, and about 1970, 69, about the civil disturbances here in Northern Ireland. We had the Provisional IRA, and we had the civil rights marches, and that turned into mayhem. And at that time, I had applied to Belfast Bible College, and because I knew I hadn't the qualification to go to train in Trinity, and I thought, well, maybe I would go to Belfast Bible College, and so, long story, but I applied. I got there. And we got up, and middle of the night, we went off. And the next day, I left my father, and he sadly died when I was in Bible college. But off we went, and we left. We got up. We had no money. We went to Belfast. My parents and all that, they paid for us, and we lived there whilst I was at Bible college in Marlborough Park. Few years, and then the Church of Ireland, they wanted to take over. They wanted to push me down an academic route, and I was happy doing diploma in theology. But anyway, after that, I even got that all mixed up too. I had a disaster of theology, honestly, but it didn't go so very far. I don't know what was happening, but God was working, and then I applied eventually after Bible college. I was attached to a parish in the Lower Falls, and I was there working with the chaplains for about 2 years. During the time of the riots, so a lot of dead bodies, working in the Royal Victoria Hospital, and was there. I met clergy of all denominations, pastors, evangelicals, whatever. They all were coming in, and I got talking to a lot of them. And I think it was Reverend Eric Gallagher, the Methodist Church. He had a lot of influence over me at that time, and he said, "If God has called you, He'll open the doors." And I thought, yes, He will, and He did, and in faith, and we went out, and there I worked in that parish just as an ordinary guy. I wasn't doing anything special. I was going out with the rector. I was going around to the visits, and I was learning a lot about people. It was God's way of molding and shaping me for what I'm doing now. At that time, I thought I would still end up ordained, but He didn't. He said, "No, I have a different ministry for you." And that was where He was planting the seeds for me for street ministry. And I had no idea at all. And so moving on from that, I scraped into university to do political science, and off I went. I don't know why, but I did that because I didn't have great interest in politics, but I felt it was maybe the only faculty I could get into to do something, to say I'd been there and done the T-shirt, Yeah. But I went there and as a member of Christian Union, and so things began to take off. So there I spent in political science and read that for 3 4 years, and then I was still niggling at me because I knew that there was all the ministries, and it was the rector of Drumcree, Ken Ford. He said, God calls you, he will equip you, and he did, and he will close one door but open 1,000 windows. And it took me all that time to realize that really that yes, he did, and that there are other ministries in the church. You don't have to have a clerical collar. I
Mm-hmm.
could, and I taught of church army, by the way, but I knew that I wasn't a good enough Christian. I was a terrible Christian. I wasn't witnessing enough. I wasn't telling people enough. I was just felt a bit down, like I should be out like these other men, like the Faith Mission in Newcastle, speaking. But I knew it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling God day after day, and I was back in my heart and I said, Lord, I'm not good enough. Why have you called me into this? And so after that, praise God, he took me to university and then brought me into my work in health psychology, clinical work, and opened up the door again. And the blessings just began to pour out
Amazing.
because I just said, look, God, here I am, sent me.
Very good. Yeah. So if that's what is that the world you've just been in since then, Arthur?
Well, since then, Neil, God has been so good. When I was an academic lecturing in universities and here and abroad in Hong Kong as well, I knew that was for a reason. He was molding me like the potter's clay. There I was. I said, just take me, Lord. You're the expert. I'm not. Take me and use me. I had no idea then that he'd put me where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love God, and I'm such an abysmal Christian in many ways because I say, look, Lord, here I am, sent me. I should be doing more for the Lord, and I always want to do more. But I think that He's just to be faithful. There's nothing great about what I do, certainly not. It's the other people that surround me and that are doing the work. And I think, that in that work, he did call me and equip me for the reason. And I think, working as I do, which took an awful lot of years. I mean, I spent 10 years in university, actually, and another 10, 15 years teaching and lecturing in university and researching. And so then I began to reach out, and I think my specialty at that time was identity, personal identities, and the clinical aspects of identity formation. And that came because I knew the missions were going out to Africa. I was very involved at that time to the African Inland Mission and the China Inland Mission. And I knew that here was God. He has created us all, black and white, different colors. And why do we have no word of racism then? Absolutely never heard of it. And we were God's children, different colors, different people, different needs. And there's days I spent in tears because I wanted to be there and I couldn't be there. And I knew, Lord, just take me. I didn't feel right in university. I mean, I felt that I was a square peg in a round hole. I came from an ordinary working class background, which I love and admire and value so much now, but I didn't fit in. But I I suffered that, I suppose, for a while, and then I began, and I thought, something, God, you're amazing, and there was this amazing grace. I could feel that amazing grace all the time, because there I was able to sing, right? And somebody said to me, "What's your best talent?" Well, I said, "I can sing anyway. That's something." And I thought, but I'm not going to end up on the stage. Definitely not. That's not for me. There was something that God had sown in my heart, and it was a love for people who are in the margin,
Yeah.
a love for people who were broken.
Yeah.
And I went back to Matthew's Gospel, and I went back to also Psalm 37, where God says, look, commit your way unto the Lord, believe in him, and I will make this happen. And he did. And I hold on, no matter where I am in my travels, I always go back to Psalm 37. And there's other ones, but that one made a big difference to me when even I was in Bible college, just saying, commit your way unto me. And I need to recommit myself every day to him. Commit your way to me. I'll make things happen. I will change your life. But you have to put your trust in me totally, and no half measures. You do or you don't. And as one of the rectors of St. Mark's had spoken one day, if you're going to crown the Lord, you either crown him Lord of all, or you needn't crown him at all. And I had to.
Yeah.
And I had to do that.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. I love that language that you're using there, Arthur, about love for people in the margins. And so we've about 35 minutes left here, and I think it'd be great for us just to spend some time just highlighting some of that work that you've been doing. I suppose specifically from that heart with a love and a passion for people in the margins. I love that, and so maybe would you tell us a wee bit about, for example, Yellow Ribbon? Could you tell us a wee bit about like some
Sure. Yes.
work that you've been doing around?
Well, I felt that I had a very good job, and as an academic and researcher, and God brought me through my PhD and all of that, which didn't come easy, I can tell you. Never does for anybody, but anyway, I was lucky getting a qualifying exam. I didn't get through a field of thing twice. I was really laughing stock around the town. I was happy making gigs and things, but anyway, God has his finger on me.
Yeah.
And I was playing around with radio, Chris, and all this. It was great crack egg because, at that time you sent away for a radio station, you see, because the guy beside us, to answer your question here, Neil, the guy beside us and Alexander Gardens worked in Harlan and Wolff's, called
Okay.
Harlan and Bluffs, actually, but Harlan and Wolff, and he was a top hat guy. They were foremen, and he had a massive radio station in the back garden in a shed. And we'd all go up there and we had to get these radio, he showed us how to build a radio set, and with crystals and transistors. And this was amazing. It took about 2 weeks coming, no Amazon. So you got this in about 3 weeks' time. And the absolute excitement of opening this up and getting this together, and I thought, we can get in touch with people around the world here. And one night he got a missionary on out in Uganda, and my eyes lit up and my head lit up too. I said, what? Missionaries in Portadown? And we could talk to them. It was amazing. So this went on, and I kept thinking, do you know something? God calls us to do different work in the vineyard. Calls you there, Neil, and Paul's there, and I'm here, and Ronnie's there, and the other people are here. And I felt it's a very big vineyard, but he doesn't fail. God never fails. And he gives us that love and joy and hope and strength in serving him. And in all our sort of, in all our weaknesses, he cares. And our brokenness, he cares. He reaches out. And I knew at that time that I wasn't unhappy. I've never been unhappy. I've always been happy doing what I do. And sometimes I do well, and other times I don't. But Yellow Ribbon came along because I had been doing research at that time into threatened identities, people who felt on the margin. They were colored, they were maybe African Americans, they could be Chinese, and I knew at that time there was something. Who loves these people? I know that God loves them, but who's working out? So I was beginning to see missionary work and evangelism from a different light. I said, look, if we died tonight, where are we going to be? If these people die, where are they going to be? And I knew that then that you can know so much about God and you can do those traditional things, but are actually reasonably meaningless sometimes, because I kept the question, what value does it have believing in tradition? And it's important to many people, I realize that. But for me, I wanted the real thing. I wanted to know him personally. And that's where Yellow Ribbon came in. Now, I got a connection out of the blue one day from this place in America. And it was the time of the suicides in Portadown where the Craigavon schoolboys lost their lives. Yeah. And because I was working as a specialist in suicidal behavior, the World Press were here in the town. I tried to keep away from it all because it was really awful out here at Laurel Vale. And Tony Walker, Tony had lost his lovely little son there, and and the other people as well, Wayne Brown, and it was just absolute pure tragedy. Yeah. And at the same time, there were 26 of these happened in South Wales and Bridgend, and I felt that because journalists were coming across and pointing their fingers saying, did you not know, could you not do anything about this? I said, look, you don't understand suicidal work. We will know nothing about this. There are still suicides going on that I don't hear about. We don't hear about them. I'll tell you why in a few moments. People think that in Yellow Ribbon Suicide Prevention, we see people who are suicidal. We do occasionally. We diagnose them very early on to prevent that from getting as far as that, if we know about them. And we can't know about everyone. I wish we could. And sadly, the people who do lose their lives, and some very recently, as you know, they would still be alive, but we don't know, sadly. But what happened was the police came to me and said, look, we need to do something here about suicide in Portadown. And so, but I have no business training. I'm lucky having what I have, never mind business mind, and said, you need to set something up. The only thing I could set up was my own car on a Saturday night downtown. So I said, right, okay, Lord, I'm going to go out. And down I went, and the back of my wee car, I went down the town, and I opened up this. Now, Yellow Ribbon were only in touch with me. We hadn't set it up yet, but God was working in this. And I felt, right, there's a lot of young people around here at night, and they're lost and broken. And I was so I just admired all the other work was going on from the people around the town, and Gordon Foster and all these other people around the town, and I was getting to know people who are out down the river and so on. And so I opens up the car and got a couple of big flasks and opened up the boot and put soup in it at night, and da 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 da. And then I'd been, of course, with the Cleft. I'd been with the Cleft for a long, long time, and I was Crossroads. But at that time, the CW Hall, you see, had been the background, because I used to go there as a child on a Sunday night after St. Mark's Church. You got out of church at 8 o'clock, and you had 10 minutes to go around the corner to the CWU, and they had a big kitchen, so they were going to make the soup for me and. So I was able to get that down, fill the flask, and bring them down, and stand under the Regal beside the Pleasure Gardens. And I was able to go there and open up. And so these guys would be coming around at night and saying, hey, Arthur, what's this all about? And I would have wee tracts with me and a couple of wee Bibles that some other people were able to give me to give out to them, and give them out health literature and stuff like that as well. So they got health literature. We got stuff in drug addiction that I was working at the time, and narcotic abuse. And so I was able to give them that and give them a tract or something else. Sometimes I'd throw them away, but I'd lift them up again and dry them out and put them in the car. But then they would, but we got to know them, and I got a bond going with them. And he had all these crazy questions, like the guys were doing all the drugs of the day that was going on down the river, at that time. So, but the love was there. The love, not just from me, but from other people working around the town and different ministries. And it's all working together, and I felt that, well, here I am, I've got a bit of a wreck of a car here, well, you do as an academic, you don't be driving BMWs. So the thing just about went. So anyway, and so it served the purpose. And then God was working. A couple of businessmen in the town, Ernie Thornton, they were living around the town, and they donated a caravan to me. But I had nothing to pull it. My car wouldn't have pulled the rice of a pudding. But I had to get this guy, and he came along. He said, I'm from the Elim Church, and he came along with his wife. And they had a 4x4, a tiny one, and that would pull it. And they were excited for evangelism in the street. And they helped me out, Desi and his wife. And so we got this caravan, and it was a real beauty of a thing. You could have lived in it yourself. So anyway, here I was in the caravan. And we got it up, and we get ministry working with young people, and I was so happy. That was my calling, just being with them, and older people coming along, and drunks and all the rest of it, and having a bit of crack through the night with them, And I'd set up about maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, and go through to 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock on Sunday morning. Go home, get a bit of hours sleep, and they'd head out to church about 10 o'clock, and not knowing what was going on. I was half asleep, but anyway, but the thing, it was great fun and meeting people. But the main important thing was they were lost, they were broken, they were in relationships they shouldn't have been in, nobody to guide them. And God didn't figure on the radar, wasn't anywhere on it. And I thought, it opened up a lot of doors for me. And I thought that, there's something lovely about this. And so I contacted Yellow Ribbon, and they said, look, we can give you a license to set up, but I know where to go. I was like, where are we going to go? But I knew that God was in this, and he'd opened up a door for me. No money to set it up, nothing to do. And then we got a wee room, and it was over in Mantlev Street. And at that time I was involved in the intercultural program. And so we had use of a few rooms there. And so I was using the caravan, but then people wanted to know, well, why are you working at the caravan? And I didn't want to get a bad name. So we then went to the council, and we got it constituted to the Borough Council. And then the Charity Commission got regulated. And then we had to get this committee put together. And then it began to take shape business-wise. So then we had to... I carried that on for a few years, and then we moved across to Church Street, where we are now. And the place has fallen down, actually, at the minute, And I was thinking, right in the scriptures there, where the Lord lifted the poor man through the roof, and I thought, my goodness, Lord, you look at our roof, they'll be lifting somebody out of here soon because there are many holes in it. And I thought, but Lord is gracious. And I think, the healing ministry that we read in Matthew's Gospel, and it was so dominant in my thoughts, the fact that he made the blind see, the lame walk, he healed, he raised Jairus from the dead. And I thought, that healing power and that ministry of healing is still very much set in my life. And we're learning all the time. I have so much to learn yet, Neil.
Yeah.
And I feel that reaching out to the brokenhearted, I take GP referrals regularly, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I move into my other work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Still doing the emergencies, but I've got a mental health nurse works with me now too. I have students from the University of Ulster and Korean psychology department. I take them every year now. I have 4 or 5 of them come, and they come to
Yeah.
spend 9 months with me
Very
in clinical supervision. And so we do that. So then God moved me on into a different world as well as part of that
yeah.
ministry.
Yeah. Tell about that. Is that the world of broadcasting?
Yes, that came as a bit of a surprise. God's full of surprises in your life. People, I see some people, and you'd think they'd lost everything. Some of them have actually, but I said, look, wait, I tell you, God will put a smile on your face again. You have no idea what God can do in your life. If you think God's something abstract that's out there and doesn't care about you, you're far mistaken. This
Mm-hmm.
God is alive. He's
Yeah.
fresh. He's in tune. He created you like the watchmaker, and he knows every detail of your thoughts, your minds, your emotions. And he is a God of emotions. He's a God of happiness, a God of change, a God of positivity, because he is creator. And at that time, I had no idea, and I knew that I wasn't writing academic stuff. That was another part of my life. And I said, well, God did it for a reason, and He brings us into places sometimes that are tough, with challenging. And that was that. It was a challenge. Academia was a big challenge for me, but God knows that I'm more excited about things reaching out in the dark world. I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea this dark world was going to be London studios. I didn't know it was
Mm-hmm.
going to be reality TV when I ended up in Big Brother. And so then I knew and was praying one night, reading Spurgeon, and without going into all the details, I felt then that God was saying to me, "Do you know something? If you look at that world of entertainment, you have so many people there. There are Christians in it, not many, but there are, and people think because it's entertainment, it's wrong." Now,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you there's quite a lot of things that are not right about it, but then there's quite a lot of things not right about our lives, even as Christians either.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't judge them. I can't judge anyone. But God's opened up the door and has given me the opportunity to be trained for television and radio work. There's got to be a purpose in it. And I think I'm just called to serve
Mm-hmm.
and called to be faithful. And that just opened up the doors when psychologists were involved with Big Brother in 2006. And I was in Bournemouth Studios there, working with Jane Goody, who's sadly gone, and other celebrities, to Shilpa Shetty, the Bollywood film star, and people like that. And so we had a show there called Big Brother's Big Brain. I don't know anything brainy about it, but we were there, and Professor Jeffrey Beating, University of Manchester, myself, and a few others, Dr. Pam Spur, and people like that, people I didn't really know. But we
Yeah.
all came together in Bournemouth, and this was the greatest big thing on TV. And I thought, you know something? What's the purpose of all of this reality TV? It's anything but real. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I watch, uh, as a psychologist, a celebrity psychologist, what they call us, not the term I use anyway. But I felt that celebrities were people who, just like you and I, are human. They may have a lot of money, they have a lot of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
They're people. They're broken.
Yeah.
They are people unhappy in the wrong relationships that lead them to end their life.
Yeah.
And I knew who's reaching out to these people. You'd never say, I know I did see a clergyman one day in the studios, but I don't know who he was. I didn't care who he was really, but it's not the done thing. And I thought, you know something, we're reaching out across the world, rightly so, touching hearts and lives in every country, and even in drop-in ministries as well. The wonderful work that's going on there too, Neil. And with Grace Community, we are as communities that matter. And here was a community in London. And whenever I sat down, the other one I met was whenever I moved into I'm a Celebrity, I did some work with them and Sky TV and others. I felt that, who are these people? I want to get to know them, because if you got the ministry, it's about bonding, coming alongside them. And I felt that, well, whenever God was so wonderful to open up the pathways and doors for me to contribute in my small way and to my skills as a psychologist working on celebrities, is come alongside them and strip away the wealth, take away all that ALS stuff and take that all away. It's meaningless at the end of the day. It means nothing.
Yeah.
These people live and they die. And if they die without Christ, where are they? And I knew they were breaking. I listened to the stories. I listened to those. I work over there. There are people there of all faiths, no faith, and mostly with no faith, where it's imbued with we have the gay community, which is very large, with the atheistic community, which is extremely large, with a very large Muslim population, a very large including Buddhism population, and it goes on and on. But I couldn't see anybody that was coming alongside them. And they interview all these experts. I don't like the word expert, but they interview, we're called experts, but anyway, it doesn't mean anything. But anything, they interview these people, and I said, like, if all these people our lives are in a mess, what are all these experts doing? Will they just go on to a show and off it again? But then I work freelance, of course, so that's my job, television and radio and broadcasting. But other people are brought on as experts, they've got their own jobs and that's their life. But I was there and feeling, God brought me into the world of technology in studio broadcasting. And when I was doing my training in London, it was really just being able to see, what can I do to make a difference? It was only one person. And there was one guy did meet me in the green room. I can't mention his name for obvious reasons, but he met me in the green room and I was doing a This Morning program a few times. And we were talking about where he came from. He came from East London. And I happened to pull something out of my messenger. I always carry this man bag, and I think I carried all the junk of the day in it, But I had a wee testament in it and I had to stay overnight because I wasn't due back to Northern Ireland the following day. And I pulled this out, and he saw it and wondered what was that, because I felt his feet. It was a wee Gideon testament I had. I ended up giving this to him. I can't obviously mention his name, as I said, very large public figure. And we sat down for a chat and a cup of coffee, and ended up, I sent him another 3 they wanted for people. Hunger, curiosity, who is this God that you're talking about? And with all that plethora of behavior that's going on that we're still trying to grapple with and amidst all the controversies, the violence and everything else that we had, there's so much brokenness about, and we have it here, we have it everywhere. And we're just called to serve in our humility, in what gifts that God has given us, you, I, and others, and say, that is making a difference. And so that's where I ended up and continue to thrive serving him, as much as I can with all my failures and, trying to do my little bit in that part of the vineyard.
That's really good. I love some of that. Again, love some of what you're sharing with us there, Arthur, because I think it applies to you in your role in a green room in London, and it applies to us engaging with our community in a small village in Rich Hill. We're all called, I think we're all called to serve in humility. And you've used language there that I think is so important for no matter who we are, to hear who can we come alongside. Like you're talking about all of those different communities that just don't have anybody coming alongside. And it goes back to some of that stuff that you're talking about, a love for people on the margins. And sometimes I think that's what the main aspect of love looks like, willing to draw alongside in your humility to serve and to love people really well where they're at. And so it's great to hear that that's what you've been doing in your world, and the challenge for us all is how we do that really effectively in our own worlds as well. You just for time's flying here, unfortunately, Arthur, but I'd love you just to spend some time maybe just reflecting on just your feelings on mental health and just the approach, how you've seen that change over the last couple of years, and even we've still a long way to go, I think. And is there some stuff that you can sort of speak around that for us?
Yes. Well, we have mental health champion in Northern Ireland, Professor Siobhan Professor Siobhan O'Neill, rather. And Siobhan is really, she's a mental health champion. And what we're doing now in Northern Ireland is the government has now got what's called a protective life strategy. And it's out for consultation at the moment. And the idea of this document is for to help us to work more closely together to target and the objectives in providing and reaching out mental health services, reaching out to the urban and rural communities to diagnose early on and to identify people who are at risk and to bring them down. Now, those government documents are very important because we can't operate without them. It could be just running around in the dark, literally, except we have a strategy and we've got strategic aims and objectives to meet. And so that's out for consultation at the moment. And once that's ratified by government down the line, it will give us more concrete objectives of where we're going, what targets we have to achieve, how we're going to do that, and that will attract government funding. Now, that's at that level. What burns in my heart more is I believe that Christ is the healer. And I think we have the right, and as fishermen, and I love that term, as fishers of men and women, we have that right to reach out in mental health through the churches, through evangelism. And we have to have proper training done in lay and pastoral ministry that's done professionally and properly and adequately to train and empower people in your church and mine and other ones, empower them to minister and to know and to understand really the difficulties people are facing. It's not very obvious when people are thinking of ending their life, I can tell you. And we can put on a face very easily. We often go around and we seem to be happy and we're breaking and crying inside. And I think, there's one thing I know as a psychologist for many years standing now, really, whenever someone knows you're touching their life and their heart and their problems, you're done exactly what God wants you to do. And I think the joy that we get is coming together. We should be coming together as church. We're too insular. And I think, we need to have a sea of change flowing through the churches now, through the power of the Holy Spirit, so that we can come out and say, we're going to take mental health, we're going to do it seriously. We're going to do it properly.
Yeah.
And there's too much insular behavior going on, I think, between the churches in isolation, where they're doing their own thing, and that's not good. We have to be working with a common theme, working together and having a strategy between the churches. I would love to see a strategy between all the churches, small and large, not institutional, independent churches, needing to come together and say, we're going to have a mental health strategy that is going to meet the needs of the people in our community. Because if the community is looked after in that sense, which you are doing a wonderful job of, Neil, and if you take us a template for other communities and fire them up and empower them and train them to reach out for mental health. I'm just involved in a new endeavor now called Mindspace 247. It's coming around in about 10 days time now, and it's providing a paid service actually for people who are waiting for 2 years to see a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever. And Mindspace is being launched in London quite soon, and I'm heavily involved in that as an ambassador. And that is to provide for students as well, heavily discounted service, so that students can get, for a very small fee, I don't know what it is yet, they can get access to people like me and other people to have proper therapy rather than wait, because you're waiting around 2 years now to see a clinical psychologist or health psychologist, maybe less, and we need to take the stigma off mental health. We've got to destigmatize the population and decategorize people, strip away the labels, where labels are destroying mental health. And where we're labeled, where on the margin, where we feel if we're not right and we haven't got a label, look, we need to remove all of those and go back to the human factor and say, I am your big brother. I am your big sister. I care about you. I don't care what color your skin is. It's irrelevant. And it's you, your heart, your mind that matters. And the truth of the matter is that we have the right people to train in our churches, do that job, and to touch those hearts. And it has to be a two-pronged. We need to have the biblical exegesis. We need to have the preaching, the teaching, the support and structures in the churches to support those people, because if you're going to do that and all the churches to do this ministry, it's got to be done properly. It's got to be done in an effective way that's going to say, yes, it's a community church, so it's eclectic in a way. It's bringing these people together, caring about the loss of jobs, the businesses are falling apart at the minute, the frustration and anger at not being able to open up again. All of that, you're getting it and I'm getting it, and people are saying, where's God in the middle of this? What's God doing? And it's only at a time when there's a crisis to blame God, by the way. You never hear Satan's name mentioned. No, no, no. He does no wrong. It's all, why did God let this happen? And that's where people are losing their faith. And so I think there's a big issue here, a massive challenge, I think, for evangelicalism to step forward and to say, yes, we are living in the secular world, but we have to understand the secular world and to listen to their voices and do something about it and win them. And I think they can be won over to a new way of life where faith and hope and charity become integrated. And where these people are really and truly born again of the one of the Spirit.
Yeah, and I don't want to just repeat all that you said there, Arthur, but there's just so much that you've said in there that I think is so important for us. And I think just reflecting as somebody that is part of a local church, sometimes the frustration can be, I think that's a clear marker whether you are here to serve people or not. If you're willing to put all of your other biases and prejudices aside in order to create some real strong strategy for the sake of other people, and that language about being too insular is a real challenge. I'm really challenged by what you're talking about. It has to be done properly, because I'm always nervous that it comes around to like a yearly, like mental health day or mental health week, and I'm always nervous that we do something and it just becomes a bit tokenistic, and then we just come back and then we pick it up again. I'm like, how can we do this? How can we do this properly? And I just feel like my mind's going mad here at the minute as I think like that language you're using about labels, how labels are destroying people, decategorizing people, and that's the significance of listening to people's voices. Is like Arthur, there's also so much in there, and I'm just really grateful for so much of that. One area in particular that is probably really saddens me, and we talked about it on our podcast a couple of weeks ago around the idea of being better citizens on the web. And I know you've done a bit of work around cyber bullying, and is there
When trolls, what they do in bullying, a troll will probably have been bullied. We know that from research.
Yeah, Arthur, I think one of the things that's really saddened me over the last year, maybe more, has been just the area of cyberbullying. I use Twitter quite a lot, and it's just been painful to watch and hear so many stories of trolling and cyberbullying. And I know that's a work that you're passionate about. You do a lot of work around that. Could you just take a bit of time and tell us about that and how we can better tackle this issue?
Yes, well, there are policies. I mean, let me just qualify this first of all by saying, what do they do? Trolls, keyboard warriors, these are guys that can be of any gender, of any race, any culture. They work usually in large groups of clusters. With usually guys like our scammers, professional scammers, back in the likes of Bulgarian places, we do not research, but in other countries as well. And they operate these people. And what happens is there's a form of control, it's empowerment. So these young guys feel empowered. They're paid money for trolling.
Yeah.
So become a keyboard warrior with the intent to get high emotional payoffs. So a troll will get high emotional payoffs. They get a psychological kick if you respond
Well,
in your vulnerability. So they will attack highly vulnerable young people, especially children who have got beautiful faces, childlike faces, children who have got a disability, and particularly have got a physical disability will be a target. But also people got a weak personality, and this is done at random, and they will target you and keep targeting you until you're worn down, really. And they get you to try and legitimize and believe in what they say about you is true. So you're not good looking. You should never be in television. You should not be doing what you're doing. Don't believe in God. Don't be doing this. Don't be doing that. You know, you're useless. You know you are. And this perpetuates right through their identity, who they are. So it's a satanic attack almost. I can't use that word in my profession, but it's a satanic attack on that person's individuality, on their mindset, on their brain chemistry.
yeah.
And there's no way out. And we have, I know, in Channel 4 is producing a program, I think it's this week, next week, and Carl and Fleck. And we've had a lot of celebrity suicides, as you know, over the years. I've been involved in 2 or 3 of them just as a broadcaster. But also, I think it helps us to understand, you know, more so, we need to understand this bullying behavior. Bullying is going on now. Finding the evidence of this has now been a big problem, but it's becoming more sophisticated. And Metropolitan Police have got quite a lot of highly sophisticated devices now to monitor this. Now, what happens is that the when that person is bullied, it they can track down your machine by your machine number, machine coding is called. But the guys who do this bullying, cyberbullying, or keyboard bullying, you know, they're usually not aware that they're breaching the Miscommunications Act, the Defamation Act, etc., etc. So they're totally devoid of knowing the legalities of it. They just want you to die and to spill blood. That is exactly what they want to do. That's this psychology behind a troll very quickly. And I get from the gay community who are really badly trolled, especially if you're working in television. There are people with mental health issues. When you're brought into a hospital like Craigavon or St. Guy's, St. Thomas's, you're not asked what you believe in. You're just a person who's there and blood's pouring out of you, whether you've been bullied, beaten up, or whatever. And I'm thinking of the Good Samaritan coming along and lifting up that brokenness.
Yeah.
And I refer a lot to brokenness because our lives are broken constantly. And I think we have to, in our with all the skills that you have there, Neil, you know, and your team and Grace Community Church, you know, that reaching out, you know, the love and the touching of that person, lifting them up, that amazing reward of knowing I've brought them to life through Calvary. And there's something important about that, you know, that's something that I see and think about and feel about quite a lot. You know, it's just, we're not called to do anything absolutely wonderful. We're just called to come alongside that person, you know, and say, I'm beside you. I'll walk the walk with you. Whether it's bereavement, whether it's a tragic road accident, whether it's someone lost their life for whatever reason, I am with you. And help them to understand that God is a God of love and faithfulness and will never let you down, but he will lift you up and he will recover you from cyberbullying. And it's coming on in very, very versatile ways at the moment, I can tell you, you know, and we get amongst the celebrities, but we get amongst the ordinary people in our town.
Yeah.
And it's because of the concept of evil. and we're driven by evil motives, by evil attitudes.
Yeah.
And it's really about causing harm. There's a motive to cause harm. And these are what we call psychopathological motives in the personality of the troll and the keyboard warrior, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's really good, Arthur. Thank you. One of the many videos I've watched of you was you were very complimentary about our village, Rich Hill. You were there doing an interview with Joshua Hewitt.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, Joshua.
I don't think it was all that long ago, and so it was great. I was just really chuffed that how complimentary you were about this beautiful, picturesque little village of ours. So that was great. And
Oh,
then and then
lovely.
just hearing Josh's story. I'd already heard and knew a wee bit about Josh's story, but just really interesting hearing. Just hearing from somebody that we know from our local community the impact that cyberbullying had on him to the point um, of almost taking his life, which is frightening.
Absolutely. And amazing to see how Josh has turned his life around even since then.
Yeah.
You know, and remember that day when we walked down to the stream and when Josh and I and the cow behind us. And I remember that day when we talked about it, Neil, you know, it was amazing actually because whenever I got out and the car and we're going over to set this up and Joshua is doing all the technology bit. And right behind it, I think there was a cross, from what I remember, on the lamppost. I didn't see it
Oh,
until it was
yes, that's
finished.
right. That's right.
And yeah, I didn't say it
You
to
can
finish,
see
but
it.
the bell that was tolling was quite unusual, and I thought that was lovely. It was a tranquility, was a perfect setting for that to take
Yeah,
place, you know.
yeah.
And here you had just that tranquility was a perfect setting, but it was the fact, you know, that when does the bell toll?
Mm,
And I'm reminded of other times when that bell tolls, and I've got to say, you know, sadly, I wish I'd known that person who has just died by suicide.
yeah.
And I've been to those, and you may as well, Neil, you know. But I'm thinking, you know, in what is life, the value of life. And I think now it's time to cheer up the nation. And I remember Dick Saunders' campaign here when I was absolutely enthralled with this, you know, helping them to pitch that big tent out there on my road and buttering the pegs down. And the joy of those evangelical, you know, the missions were going on everywhere. The tents were coming up, but that was amazing. I remember that and the hymn singing and no masks and everything. And there we were. And the tears when it closed down after 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, and
Mm,
would have packed the whole thing up together with back to England. And oh, and I think, Lord, bring back those days, you know. But you know, the thing is, I think going back to the healing ministry and of the healing of the mind, the healing of the person, the people have lost their jobs in the towns now. There are high number of young people unemployed now. Who's
mm,
reaching out? Who cares?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think there's no greater challenges now for the community to look after these young people are being bullied for what they believe in, bullied for what they look like,
yeah,
and businessmen whose lives are falling apart through no fault of their own.
yeah,
Can we rebuild those businesses again?
yeah,
Is there hope? Yes, there is hope. I can tell you there's hope, and we know that.
yeah,
And that hope will come. We have to hold on in faith, you know.
yeah.
And faith doesn't come easy to people, but faith is what we call a cognitive belief structure. We have to have faith in something,
Mm-hmm.
but it challenges us to search our faith. And what do I believe in, and where am I going?
Yeah, yeah, great.
Arthur, can I ask a quick thing? Just because you were talking about churches and organizations, I guess, having a bit more training and stuff around spotting mental health
Hmm.
issues and things like that. Do you have a few kind of practical tips around that, or I suppose you kind of mentioned a wee bit about maybe we bury our heads in the sand a bit when it comes to mental health. Any kind of tips, practical tips where we can sort of spot those blind spots that we have, or
Well, you know, as if you refer to suicides and mental health, very often they're hidden, they're very covert. We can't see it. And sadly, we lose a lot of people by suicide because there are no signs.
Mm,
And but if you're in my clinic to hear people talking about chronic depression, I think the main thing, the first hack or tip I would give, number one, listen. Listen carefully and keep focused on them.
mm,
Let them tell their story.
yeah,
Point two, care for them. Have a support system in your church that gives them that hope and life to know, and empowers them, with a new way to think. Get them to challenge the negative thoughts. Write out the negative thoughts. For example, you might say, I'm never going to get a job again. That could tip someone right over the edge. On the right-hand column, challenge it. Where's the evidence that you're never going to get a job again? There's as much evidence you are going to get a job again than you're not going to get a job again. Next one, nobody loves me. Really? Right-hand column, challenge it. Right, let's start with your brother, your sister, your mother, your dad, your cousin, your aunt, your employer. Now, can you show me the hard evidence that nobody in this world loves you? Because I have news for you. You're lying, because God loves you. We'll start with that one. How many more can you fill in? Next one, I'm not going to get this exam. Young people coming in. I know I'm not. I haven't worked hard enough. Show us the evidence that you're not going to get that exam. Now, they haven't got it. We can help them to build up the evidence. We can have classrooms. We can have coaching going on. We can have, there's various teachers in all churches that I've ever come into contact with who are prepared to do some coaching in the classroom, homework clubs, all that sort of thing. That can save a child from taking their life. And children do, I can tell you. The other thing is, if you're aware of a mental health difficulty in any family, talk about it very sensitively, but remember ethics and confidentiality are vital. And you should have maybe some form of policies within the church that are adequate to meet those, because the Children's Commissioner, any child under 17 goes to CAMS, by the way, if it's a mental health issue. But we don't know, many of these children don't have mental health issues and the parents are not even aware of it. Children who are bullied, look out for the signs. Loss of weight, children's behavior changing. Talk to the parents. You might be able to save life just by listening to the parents and saying, oh, what's wrong with the little one? Oh, well, there's something strange going on at home. She's just not the same. It could be an indicator of a childhood depression, childhood health anxiety. So it's a matter of coming alongside, listening carefully, training people to listen, to have active listening. We can do that for you at Yellow Ribbon sometime. Yeah. And so it's active listening skills and also befriending skills, and we're called to not just to forego anything as secular. We have to be sensible about it and intelligent about it to incorporate, life coaching skills within the church that are going to impact the people who are members of the community church or any church. And by doing that, we can find out the triggers and point them and signpost them to the right people in mental health services or to ourselves.
Another wee thing, sorry, Arthur, and I think with the schools and stuff and the pressure at the moment, I know when the kids are going to go back to school, there's probably they're going to be leveled with exams, and even that pressure of society gives you that pressure of you need to perform well and so on your exams if you're going to make it in life. But in this screen here, I know there's Andrew's probably more qualified than us, but but we're all in jobs which we have not really any qualifications for, so the proof is, as we can look back and go, well, actually the pressure to achieve then isn't really as important now when we look back on it. But have you found that with working with young people that there's almost like this massive pressure on them to perform, which in the long run isn't really that important, but for them at that moment they're probably feeling a real pressure?
Yes, I mean, the fact is, you're absolutely right. There is a concurrent pressure on young people to perform, to achieve, because we're living in a highly competitive world of young teenagers and adolescents. And the brain's undergoing quite a lot of change, the brain chemistry between the age of 12 and 15, especially in early adolescence, but more so between 15 and 19 and late adolescence. It changes quite considerably. And that time, they're more sensitive to parents, or parents saying, putting pressure on you to get grade A's, go to Cambridge, go to Oxford, go wherever. And young people might say, look, that's not for me. And so I think it's helping parents to understand their children, but also helping children understand, look, your best is good enough, and look, just do your best. Look at me, sure, look at me, a complete disaster. But it didn't stop me, it didn't stop you. And I think be encouraging and saying, look, do you know something? You will get there eventually. Do what makes you feel really happy. The parents, yes, they mean well with love and care for you, and they want to do best. But people that are late developers, I mean, look at me. I was a late developer, I suppose, in a way. But we all develop at individual speeds in life. And so I was being encouraged and said, look, it's nothing wrong with if you don't get your A levels, and you can go down NVQ, you can down GNVQ route. There's other vocational qualifications here. And you can transfer that, will still get you onto a university degree course, so you can go down GNVQ, the NVQ route. Some people are more practically minded rather than academic. And if you're academic, let that be. If they're vocational, let that be. All routes can take you into university nowadays, and I think we have to look and examine their talents and gifts. A young guy that I was working with not long ago, a sound engineer, he's telling me his story. He failed everything like myself, and he ended up working eventually script into the BBC. He lived in Lisburn. He ended up going to BBC Academy and got training over there, and as technician and an apprenticeship scheme. And he loves his work now.
Brilliant.
And he said university wasn't for him. As a matter of fact, he's doing so well now because he just loves working with sound. Just coincidentally, we were talking about it. He's the boom man, a senior boom engineer now, and he's doing outside broadcasting work. They love it. So it's important just to be happy what you're doing. Fashion designer, whatever you want to be, just do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's out working in the streets like me,
It's wonderful, Arthur. I know you've already given us that. I found it was really helpful again to hear those tips in response to Paul's question, just around listening carefully, active listening skills, befriending skills, challenging negative thoughts. I think that's all incredibly helpful. But I suppose just as we think of with church, with work, as we begin to come out of this lockdown, hopefully, and there's preparation for, I think, in some ways an ongoing mental health crisis. I don't know if that's maybe too strong words to put it around that. But if anything that you can maybe speak to us, even for just us as a church, as people wanting to know, how do we respond really well, really helpful, really in a real healthy way to what's coming next?
I think it's being able to be honest about our emotions in the church, leaders and congregations. Be honest.
Right, yeah.
Honest emotional exchange is good for mental health. And you have that honest exchange. It's all right to cry. It's okay to say, I've lost my business. It's okay, to say, look, the world is down now. It's not our fault. This germ has caused this. Okay. But we can recover this. We're not alone. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. He will bring us there. But he also gives us intelligence to use, by the way. And I think, what we have to do is to take an intelligent approach by maybe prayerfully considering a mental health campaign. Make maybe 2021, maybe Easter, the resurrection, a new start in life. The resurrection story is about life. It's not about death, it's about life. And so those who feel dead in the business world, we can bring them alive again. Those who feel dead to themselves, we can give them renewed help and strength, to build up that emotional resilience, which is very, very important. That they build up that toughness, that they be able to face challenges. And that's what emotional resilience is all about. And so I would focus maybe on a campaign. Maybe I can come back to me on that one. Think about a mental health campaign, how it maybe be structured. You could run that for a month, and bring in whoever you wish, an array of speakers, maybe have seminars, Bible teaching seminars, get that going. And where you're basically demonstrating the biblical truths of that's in the scriptures and how that can actually connect to people's lifestyles, because we become encapsulated with the fact, I've got to wait to see a psychiatrist for 3 months. You get the pills, but the problem's still there. Pills do work, but they will only camouflage the symptoms. They will deal with the symptoms. They will actually help the symptoms. They really do. I have GPs referrals all the time. But you need to have the medication by your GP and your consultant psychiatrist. You have to have that. But you also have to have cognitive behavior therapy, a dialectic behavior therapy, and you need to have both working together by people who are qualified to do it, so that you're taught the skills of emotional resilience, how to build it up, and how to empower yourself so that you're working, thriving in the church, thriving with the challenges of mental health, and be able to show people, to teach them, have these teaching seminars to teach them new skills, coping skills, how to cope at school, how to cope when I'm getting depressed about homework and essays and so on, depressed about my body image, a very, very big one in teenagers at the moment.
Yeah.
Celebrity worship, another big one that's causing mental health issues.
Yeah.
So, but we can talk about that later on sometime, Yeah.
Brilliant. Times flew on, Arthur, and we're
No
going to
problem.
have to wrap things up here.
Sure.
But I can show you I have a page here, and I've scribbled all over it. It's so much helpful stuff that you've brought to us tonight, and really grateful for your time. Really grateful for your heart for this. I think just you are full of hope. It's just been good to sort of, hope's quite contagious, isn't it? And so
absolutely.
you seem to be you're a hope-filled person, and so hope's contagious, and so it's been great to have you on. One last question, Arthur, before we close. I didn't prep you for this, but it's a simple one.
What?
I always want to ask at the end what you're listening to or what you're watching that you would want to recommend to our listeners.
Oh, what am I listening to? I've really got time now. Gee, where would I start? Well, I'm involved in the Noah's Ark project at the moment in Johannesburg, and it's a recreation of Noah's Ark for the next few decades. And I'm involved in that project in a minute, and I'm mindful of God's creation in that. It's on Globetrotter and Sky, and every Monday at 12 o'clock. I think it's Globetrotter Sky 191, I think I've got it correct. And that will show that we're going to save all the animals and the endangered species, put them into massive scientific domes, or 8 domes being built around that. And the book's just coming out now called You Are Noah. So I've written a chapter in that book. And so that's coming out, I think, at the end of this month. Just after we say You Are Noah. And so that tells all about that project, yes. I must admit, and you can laugh your head off at this, but how do I unwind and watch something in telly, which I do? Fools and horses all the time. Fools and horses is my tonic. I can't get away from it. I grew up with it. I always carry it with me. I'll keep it. I would never throw them out. I just love Dale Boy, and but a lot of people that I'd work with maybe are from that part of the world, and so there's a connection there. And Ronnie Barker, Open All Hours, all these oldies things that but anyway, it's not all like that, I've a big love for Animal Kingdom. I love documentaries, and so I just love to see the documentaries. Music, my God, I wouldn't be able to start. I'd take an all hour to tell you if that starts. But yes, and I just worked this before I close, and Smiling Sessions, by the way, I've just been working with them, an ambassador for the Smiling Sessions music group in London.
Very good.
And you see it on YouTube. I had to do Edelweiss at their request. We're making all the celebrities, Basil Bush, myself, Brian McFadden, all of those. If you Google it, you'll see that. It's about, we're doing a karaoke thing for all the residential care homes in London.
Brilliant.
And all other cities. And I was taken by surprise when I was asked to do that one. But we're doing that. Daniel Donaldson as well. He's doing his bit. But we all did that by Zoom just before Christmas, and we're making. And the idea is the people who are donating to that project, we're buying them all laptops so they can see their families.
Brilliant.
And so that happened way back November, December time. So we're making a new series of that at the moment. More celebrities, and so that's something new that I've been doing at the moment. So excellent. I'm going to be doing a little bit more singing. So I'm also looking at the moment upstairs, downstairs, and so I'm going back and Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice. So but I could say more, and I've been talking all night, Jeff, tell you all the other things.
That's brilliant. I look forward to that. Smiling Sessions.
The Smiling Sessions.
Very good.
Yep.
Brilliant, Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur,
not at all.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really, really great to have you on, and I appreciate your time and appreciate all that you're doing. So
not at all.
From us, thank you so much.
Be in touch soon again. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ordinary People was hosted by Neil Dawson. It was produced, edited and engineered by Andrew Gribbin and Paul Woods. Head over to ordinarypodcast.com for show notes, links, previous episodes and all the ways you can contact the show. See you next time.